McCarthy Coyle, and this is a public conversation. And I've got a telephone here, and it works, and you're welcome to call in and join the conversation. Tonight we're going to be talking about a number of things. The Fort Missoula, of course. And it's just like, hello?
Hello, Mike. Is Mike me, sir?
I picked up the wrong phone. Can you hang up and call back, and somebody else will answer?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry. All right. It says we're going to be talking about the local government review election that you'll be voting on in June. And maybe a little bit about Clinton healthcare and the sewage problem in Missoula and Fort Missoula and the bad deal, good deal, and Montana People's Action's plans for a cooperatively owned mobile home trailer park. And by the way, the handsome graphic design that you see in back of me, thanks to the miracles of modern technology here at Missoula Community Access Television, was the poster for last year's International Wildlife Film Festival, and it was designed by Art Mill of Missoula. And so let's see here. But before we launch here, I think I'll read this poem, which I entitled Montana Girl Learns About True Love at Charlie's Bar. Montana Girl Learns About True Love at Charlie's Bar. Over 7 and 7s at Charlie's, your eyes would steady on mine as I, with verbs and adjectives, sketched the 9 choirs of angels. You sang bass with the seraphim and enjoyed playing pool. And I was your green felt cushion, your blue chalk, your one bridge, your maple cue, your snug pocket, your smooth white ivory ball. On me you banked and caromed, with me you angled and stroked, and I never, no, not once, 8-balled before you called it. Yes, you always racked the table, set up the shots, kept the score, but so long as you held me gently, played me straight, I never scratched. But the night I first won, the night I cleared the table, is the night you picked up the 8-ball and put my face behind it. I've never been blackballed by a man again. Now I drink coffee with short-haired women who rub my back and tell me how much they love the way I play the game. So, well, let's see. Fort Missoula had a big party there last night, and to celebrate the fort, Save the Fort folks had a big party out at the fort. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it because we were down here at Missoula Community Access Television producing the premiere production of Oh My God, and we had a great time down here last night. Some of you may have seen it, but those of you who didn't see it should wait up on Tuesday night, February 1st, next Tuesday at 11 p.m. And see what we managed to put together. There were about 25 people collaborating on the show, and it's pretty funny, and it's outrageous, and we had a great time, and I think you will too if you watch for it next Tuesday night. It's called Oh My God, and it will be running on a monthly basis on the 4th Wednesday of every month. So I think our next live production is Thursday, February 27th. How do you say February? Library, February. Okay. Let's see, do I want to make a collect call? Boy, oh boy, healthcare, right? There's no crisis in healthcare, right? Isn't that what Senator Dole and even Senator Moynihan from New York, you know, the scholar and et cetera, there's no problem with healthcare in the United States. There's no crisis. I guess the low-income health care plan that we've got going in Missoula now, thanks to the work of a lot of people, is just unnecessary. Nobody in Missoula has any problem getting health care. And everybody now wants to make sure that they protect their cut back there in Washington. The insurance companies and the hospitals and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have anything really, I'm disgusted, so I don't. Fort Missoula. You know, the developers are taking a lot of shots in this situation, but strangely enough, as I pointed out in City Council last week, you know, perhaps the real culprit here is the university and the regents. They're the ones that are holding the property. It isn't sold yet. You know, they're the ones that are responsible here. They're the seller. And I just want to, I have these things, I think, marked off here. This is a meeting, this is from the minutes of a regents meeting of March 22nd, 1993, in which they were being asked to approve, you know, the arrangement to sell the land. And Regent Topol said, quote, "The committee had a question about some language in the agreement." Then the minutes go on to say, quote, "In response to the committee's concern with the agreement language, UM President Dennison said he had made a phone call after the committee meeting. He was told the committee's concern was examined very carefully and that the language in question would place a restriction on the purchaser but would not expose the foundation." Close quote. But none of us know either the language in question, the reservations expressed, the person called, or the restriction on the purchaser, or how the foundation would avoid exposure. I suggested the other night at City Council that perhaps, it's up to the regents. The regents can call a halt to the whole thing and just say, well, this has been a mistake or an oversight on our part, and we're just not going to do the deal. So there's a very real easy way to end this, at least for the moment, the argument and the battle over the fort. You know, here's this appraisal business. Let me just, excuse me for going through these papers, which I have marked off. Oh, by the way, some of the local people on the University of Montana Foundation Board of Trustees, I went up to talk to their Ted Delaney, who works for the foundation, seems to speak for them. And I said, well, who's on your board? And so he gave me a list, but he said, well, they're not a policy-making board. And they're just, he just said, that, well, they're wealthy people that help us raise money. And they don't vote on policy matters, and that they didn't vote on this matter of the fort. In any event, he said a lot of them are out-of-towners, but that in terms of the kind of local day-to-day or month-to-month business of the foundation, the local people in Montana who are on the board kind of, oversee or whatever they do. But anyway, the local people are Thomas Boone of Missoula, Alan Cain, C-A-I-N, of Helena, Nancy Davidson of Great Falls, I believe that's from the Davidson investment family, I'm not sure, Barbara Kessler of Missoula, K-O-E-S-S-L-E-R, Daniel Lambros of Missoula, Marilyn Peterson of Seeley Lake, William Reynolds of Missoula, and Phyllis Washington of Missoula. So those are some of the local people on the foundation. I wonder what they think of all this at the present time. A lot of the university documents just seem to be in error. For example, that property out there comes under the provisions of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the university, on a document dated February 20th, 1973, thinks that that they can do away with being within the Civil Rights Act of 1964 after the 20-year period. I guess civil rights laws don't pertain to the university and the foundation after 20 years. I'm sorry, folks. That one kind of caught my eye. The regents, when they decided to do this, they were saying that they were identifying property belonging to the university which is neither presently nor prospectively usable by the university for any purpose consistent with its mission. Now, do I have this right, that they're saying that this property out there at the fort, which the university begged and pleaded the federal government to give them 20 years for an educational mission, is now not presently usable and not usable in the future, consistent with its educational mission? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Now we go to a document, January 8th, 1993, in which they talk about an estimated value at, quote, highest and best use of the smaller parcel currently offered for sale was placed at approximately $600,000. Well, the developers are getting it for what, $450,000. So where does this $600,000 figure come in, right? And then they didn't get, apparently, a separate appraisal on those two non-commissioned officers' houses, which I and some other folks have gone out and looked at. And Divot Development, if this deal goes through, would get those houses, which in their present, they're two-family homes, beautiful, stately, historical. They face the south and the mountains and the river. There'd be nothing between them and the river. Even if you were to just take those two houses and offer them, and the university was going to offer those two houses for sale, you'd have buyers lined up in this city with $125,000 in their pocket to buy each one of those houses. So here's Divot getting the, so if you take that, if you say that they're each worth $100,000, and I think that's a fair approximation, that's $200,000 worth of existing housing, which needs some repair work, but they're in good condition, right? $200,000 worth of housing, which the university wants to convey to Divot. So in effect, Divot is getting the other 82.5 acres for $250,000. I mean, this is not making sense. Ted Delaney at the foundation told me, I said, well, how much will you realize in scholarship money if you do this deal? And he said, I quoted him something that I had heard, that maybe they would be able to make $30,000 to $35,000 a year. Delaney said to me, no way. He said, that sales money of $450,000 would produce income for us for scholarship money of $20,000 or $22,000 a year. All right, well, let's assume for the moment that that's a good deal. Let's, for the sake of the discussion. But they could double that scholarship money if they want by holding on to those two houses, those two-family houses. There's a long list of families waiting to get into family student housing. And there you've got more scholarship money with students living in those houses. That's part of their scholarship, But I guess nobody thought of that. Let's look at some of the purposes that the university said that they wanted the land for originally. This is what they got. This is what they pledged and contracted with the federal government to do. They said we request the property for these reasons. They want to establish a forestry arboretum for use by the School of Forestry and Department of Botany. The arboretum would be used to establish the growth patterns of trees found in western United States. Okay, that's one thing. tree seed orchards for development of selected varieties for improvement. There is no other area within reasonable proximity of the School of Forestry so well suited for such studies. 3, a grass nursery for use by the School of Forestry and the Department of Botany for researching classes in range management and agrostology. The grass nursery would be used to establish the growth patterns of our western range grass species, as well as to test the adaptability of imported species. It would also be used for seed propagation on Montana rangelands for selection of superior strains, experiments in genetic improvement. Part of the land is adjacent. The land in the Fort Missoula property, this is the university's, talking to the feds back when they wanted the land forever and ever. The land in the Fort Missoula property is the only remaining land which could be used for expansion of the nursery. All the other adjacent land is in private ownership and is rapidly being subdivided for housing units. That's what the university talking 25 years ago. The programs of the School of Forestry and Departments of Botany and Zoology require extensive field laboratory work. Presently, the university does not have areas nearby where such work can be conveniently conducted. The Fort Missoula property is within a distance which makes its use in these programs most suitable and practical from every standpoint. As previously mentioned, the need for such lands is vital to continue the educational programs mentioned. Funds are available in the state university budget and in the Forest and Conservation Experiment Station for the development of the programs enumerated above. That's what they told the federal government. How much of that has been done? Call. I'm tongue-tied tonight. I'm just reading. It's like, and then there's a question, certainly in some minds, again in the federal contract with the university, as to whether the money from any sale of the land would belong to them anyway, or whether they'd have to hold it in trust for the Department of Education on the federal government level. Because the language says here that if the property conveyed hereby is sold or is used for purposes other than those set forth in the above identified program, what I was just talking about, then all revenues coming to the university, which derive directly or indirectly from such sale, shall be considered to have been received and held in trust by the state board, university, or grantee, and held in trust for the Department of Education. So, I think the university ought to wake up. And then there was a letter from James Todd, Vice President, I think, for Administration at the University of Montana in the Missoulian the other day. James Todd, that Vice President, is not to be confused with the artist Jim Todd, who teaches at the university. But James Todd, in defending the price of the Fort Missoula land, saying, well, it's really, that's about as much as we can get, and then he quoted all these figures, and he was saying the reason why we were having to pay so much money for the property alongside the river right up there past Buttrey's East Gate, he said the reason why we paying so much for land there is, this is Todd in the letter saying, location. He said, he's very, it's like he wants to make sure we get it, that we don't get it. You see, in other words, he's implying that Fort Missoula is poorly located. He's saying downtown we pay a lot of money because we're on the river and we're near stores and we're near downtown. What about Fort Missoula? Location. It's on the river. It's near 2 golf courses. It's near an excellent health care facility and hospital. It's near the parks. It's in an historical complex. Mr. Todd, location. You're giving that land away. Hello. Well, missed that one again. Let's see. So I think that those 2 houses that are part of the deal if the deal were ever to go through, that those two houses should be broken apart from that deal, and a real valuation and appraisal made on those two homes, and let people bid on them, like veterans. Why is it that with all these sewage problems that we're having in Missoula, why is it that we never hear any discussion anymore about dry toilets? I mean, in other words, they go into these expensive step programs that I don't know, follow the bouncing ball through the sewer line from the house to the main sewer, and the little rubber balls that are messing up or something. But why are we spending so much money on that? Why are we not, setting more conditions on developers and builders? Why can't we have at least a model test program of dry toilets? They work. They can be designed to be aesthetically pleasing. They're less costly, but that's just an idea, and ideas don't really go for much, do they? Local government review. In the midst of all this controversy over planning and development, in June, voters in Missoula, both in the city and the county, will have the opportunity on the June ballot to decide whether you want your form of local government studied and reviewed by a group of people who would make recommendations to you. Here's the way it works. On the ballot in June the 7th, I don't know the exact language, but you'll be asked to say yes or no. I do want my form of local government reviewed, and I want to hear some options as to what changes might be worthwhile. Hello.
Hello.
You're on the air.
Yes, I just tuned in on your program. I don't know who you are. I'm sympathetic with what you're saying, though.
My name's McCarthy Coyle. It's a regular talk show.
Oh, I see. I guess you can tell how much I listen to that channel.
Well, I mean, this show used to be on at 10 o'clock, and we just had a time change. So, and it's our audience is growing all the time.
Okay. The thing that I see about this whole deal on that land out there is that's a ridiculously low appraisal.
Yes.
That has been made on it. I live in the city of Missoula, just west of the Russell School, and it's a small lot that I live on, and it's appraised at $22,000. They can get probably 5 such lots in an acre, and according to my simple mathematics here, that comes out to about $110,000 an acre.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you got sewers,
Right.
roads, and things like that, but it just seems like maybe the thing to do on that, if the university truly wanted to get the most out of it, would have been to put covenants or restrictions on the land as far as building is concerned and put it up for competitive bids.
Right. Well, according to them, that they did something which is a little bit different. They put out a request for proposals. Now, that is different, I think, in some ways from, open competitive bidding. So I get your drift for sure.
Well, I guess that's my point.
Right.
The appraisal seems like maybe it's 5 or 6 times under what the land is worth.
Yeah, they always say, well, there's development costs, and when you buy in a big block of land like this, the price is lower, etc. And but no, I think that the deal ought to. It's a bad deal, and it ought to be aborted.
Is anyone at the University Foundation considering revising what they're doing or backing away from it?
I'd like to believe, that the foundation is spending a lot of time talking about this, and that the regents because the regions have ultimate authority. I mean, if the regions, I suggested the other day that the regions come down to Missoula and have a special meeting so that they can hear directly from folks down here, because it's finally up to them. I mean, they could pull the plug on this now.
Yeah, well, it just, I'm a graduate of the university, and I occasionally contribute money to them, but this seems like they're just blowing a great big chance, if they're going to sell that land, to come out way ahead on it, way ahead of what they're thinking they'll get now.
Yeah, you said you tuned in a little bit late. I mean, the foundation fella told me that all they expect to realize out of this finally for their scholarship money. This is what makes me a little bit wary, of all this stuff. Delaney told me that they'd take this money, put it in a permanent escrow account, right, so it would never be touched, the principal, and that they expected to see $20,000 or $22,000 a year in scholarship money. And I looked at it and I thought, are you saying that it's worth it to the university to unload 83 acres of prime public land for the sake of $20,000 a year? I mean, it's like it's selling your birthright.
Yeah, well, even if they did unload it, it seems like that, they should strive to get the maximum price out of it and put it in some kind of a fund there with where the interest will pay scholarships and on a much bigger scale than that.
Let me, if you don't mind, let me ask you this, switching subjects here. I was just talking about the local government review. Do you find yourself satisfied with the form of local government, or are you thinking about, this year we have that opportunity in June to vote on the ballot as to whether we want to have a review of local government, and if we, the way the process works, which you probably are aware of, if we vote in June to say, yeah, we want to study our form of government and see whether we can make it work any better. If we vote yes, the majority, then on the November ballot, we would elect individuals to be the local government study commission or what have you. They, in turn, once they were elected, would, research, study, hold meetings, and then come up with some recommendations as to what changes, if any, they would recommend, and then we would go back to the polls to approve or reject the recommendations that they made. So it could run the gamut of consolidating the city and county governments, or it could restructure city council in a ways that would, let's say, instead of 2 people from each ward, you'd have a representative from each ward and 6 at-large council people. So would you have any feelings on that?
Well, my criticism hasn't been with the zoning people. I guess they were presented a proposal and they came up with something that they evidently thought was all right, that they approved it. The basic complaint that I have is with the University Foundation for not getting the full value out of the land, and if they did plan to sell it, and if they, their original proposal to the federal government there had some ideas of how they would use the land, and they evidently have changed their mind, and their main objective now is just to sell it and get it in a fund where they can get interest for scholarships. So I think that that being the case, they should at least get the most they can out of it. And as far as the zoning part of it, there we supposedly have competent people on that board who can do the best for the land that's available there, or to get the proper zoning on it.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts, and hang in there, and we'll see what falls out of the sky between now and the June election.
Okay, appreciate talking to you.
Okay, thanks a lot for watching.
Bye.
Bye-bye. By the way, you folks up in the Rattlesnake, I've heard that some people up in the Rattlesnake who watch MCAT on Channel 10 sometimes are not getting a very good signal. If the director would bring up page 207, that will give you a phone number to call your local cable company operator. It's 1-800, I can't, what is that, Terry? 628-6060. 1-800-628-6060. So that's the cable company that provides service to the rattlesnake, or attempts to. And until they hear from you, even if you get a tape, you should leave that message and saying you need a better signal than you're getting. Because they won't apparently do anything about it until they get a certain number of phone calls from viewers who are concerned. Lost in the woodwork, and I don't have any much more information to wonder how the Montana People's Action deal is coming along. They had wanted the county to give them some county-owned land out around out Target Range or Tower. I'm not sure. Maybe a viewer, maybe somebody from Montana People's Action can call up and tell us exactly where that land is. But it's out Target Range area, and the county owns some land out there. And they've gone to the commissioners, the county commissioners, and they've asked the county to, let them have this land so that they can organize a cooperatively owned trailer home park. And I sure think that it's an idea whose time was here 20 years ago, but they are in making some good headway with financiers who understand cooperative ownership, where you land, where you own the your property cooperatively, and but getting some land from the county is, they need a big piece of land, just like Divot Development. And so I went up and visited with Anne Mary Dusso, one of the county commissioners, and asked her what she thought of it. And she said, well, we're mulling it over. But she kind of expressed some reservations about, I think she used the word, ghettoizing certain classes of housing, that all of a sudden you put up a very big trailer home development rather than have, I guess the word these days is infill, instead of sticking 5 here and 3 there. But Montana People's Action in trying to move this proposal forward, I would venture to say, faces the same prospect that other developers like Divot have. They to make it economically feasible, they need a larger piece of land on which to develop. But it would be interesting to see whether builders and developers would pay as much attention and interest, and whether the Chamber of Commerce would be out there testifying on behalf of Montana People's Action proposal for a large trailer home development, as they did in City Council last week, come down and testify on behalf of Divot Development. Hello, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
You're on the air.
Has the Divot land in question ever been appraised by any competent appraisers?
Well, I have not read every piece of paper on the deal, right? The papers that I have strewn around me here are all paperwork from the foundation, the university, the regents. So they refer to official appraisals, but I have never seen a name an individual or company's name associated, as a professional appraiser. It would seem to me as though people who think that the land is underpriced maybe should look at an appraisal. My understanding, there was 2 appraisals by separate competent appraisers given. Mm-hmm. Well, who were they? I'm not sure. One was Stuckey Stevens, I believe, and I'm not sure about the other one. The names were given in the testimony, which I thought that you were at most of the testimony at the city council. don't think I was.
Okay. How many usable acres of land did Divot buy?
Well, I mean, the deal is not done,
Well, how much was on the? How much were they?
You're talking about what they want to buy right now.
Well, what I'm talking about is 80 some acres they wanted to buy, but how much of that is usable as far as building goes?
I think you were at all the hearings. How much?
I think something under 33 acres, 31 or 32 acres, something like that.
Right. So, okay.
So that you talk about 85 acres or 88 acres or something like that. But in reality, why, as far as usable acres goes, why it was somewhat less than half of that.
So, are you saying that the 50 acres that would be left over is a bad thing for Divot to own then?
Well, no, not necessarily. What I'm saying is that the acreage that they are buying is not all usable acreage, and when you start dividing the amount of money spent by the acres, why you must use usable acres rather than total acres, because a fairly large percentage of that is island down in the middle of the river.
Well, I think when you get is this Al? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, is this Al?
Yep.
Yep. I think a professional appraiser does place, Al, a great deal of value. I mean, in other words, there's a difference. If I buy a house in a development, let's say the Divot development, part of what I'm paying for when I buy that house is the luxury of open space around me. So there is a value. I mean, in other words, for you to say that...
But if that value, if that open space is then designated to someone else where you no longer have the control over it, why there is some value there, but not the same value you would have if you owned it.
Well,
I think you are... There's people putting out some misinformation as far as the value of the land there, as far as the amount of land that they're receiving for the value that they're putting out on it. And I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. The only thing is I would like to have all the people have the information that there is there.
Well, what do you think what about the idea of going for another appraisal?
Fine. There's been two. Go for the third one.
I mean,
sure. That's great.
One of the figures mentioned in the I don't know if you've been on the whole time with me tonight.
No,
one of the figures mentioned in the university documents is a reference to a price of $600,000. So
I don't know anything about a $600,000
right.
figure.
Well, I mean, it's mentioned in these documents, and I'd be happy to show them to you. But that's their language, not mine. So we there, it's I mean, are you saying that you think that it's a good deal?
Well, I think if you have competent appraisers appraise land, and then you go back and get another, what is apparently a competent appraiser appraise land, and then the land is sold for more than the appraised figures, that probably whoever was selling the land got a reasonable price for the land.
Right. But do you think that if the university says that its goal, this is the only goal they've ever talked about, that its goal in selling the land was to raise money for scholarships. Delaney at the foundation told me 2 weeks ago, Al, that what they would realize then, because that money would go into a permanent escrow fund, that they would see about $20,000 a year in scholarship money. Do you think that that's a wise choice on the part of the university to surrender ownership of 83 acres of what you must acknowledge, Al, that that's pretty prime territory.
A portion of that is fairly prime land.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that I don't think most of the rest of the people have the information that the university has on that.
Well, I mean,
and as far as whether or not the university should sell a portion of land that they have, I think is left up to the ownership ownership, which is the university, to make that decision.
Well,
If you want to take the university on for that, that's fine.
Well,
but as far as taking the project on,
no,
because you're not getting sufficient money for it, why, that's a different issue
well,
entirely.
that's the main thing that I've been focusing on tonight, Al, is that is in fact the university. That it's not a good deal for the university. When they made this decision to unload this land, they said, this is the regents talking, right? You know, and you must have come in late because I quoted from the regents' minutes tonight, as I did the other night. And they said that this land was not presently or prospectively, meaning in the future, usable for the university's educational mission. I find that, how could anybody say that?
Well, I would say that the regents of the university probably is more capable of making that decision than any of the rest of us are.
Oh man, you're doing yourself a disservice by saying that.
Well,
what
I've got mine. So
I mean, in other words, what makes them more intelligent than you or me?
Well, it isn't a matter of intelligence; it's a matter of information.
Well, you know, one of the biggest problems, Al, is that you never get, it's very difficult to get reliable information. You know, I mean, it always...
Very difficult to get reliable information.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get sufficient information.
Right.
So you end up by having to make decisions on the information that you've got and to make the decision on how reliable that information is.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think it'd be a good idea for the regents to come over to Missoula, Al, and hear from folks over here, and they could have a meeting over here?
Oh, I don't have any problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
The decision that the regents make on selling that land is their decision. No, the decision that local government here made as to whether or not, after that land was sold,
mm-hmm.
whether or not it was a proper zoning decision
mm-hmm.
on it. It has nothing to do with the decision on selling the land.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, as you're an elected official, I mean, you have to deal with all parts of it. You know, I mean, it's you can say, well, it's just you know, I just do the dishes, right? I don't dry, you know. I mean, in a way, that's partly what you're saying. You're saying that's not my affair, what the university is doing or not doing. But you're a public policy maker. Of course it's your affair.
When a person comes before the body, the planning board and so on and so
mm-hmm.
forth, to make a decision on what they're going to use their land for,
mm-hmm.
it is not up to the policy-making body to decide whether or not the person who has come before you has legitimate ownership of that land.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask them, and they say that they do, if the title company says, yes, we've insured the title on it, then it is no longer the responsibility of the decision maker as to whether or not the owner is the owner. That's a different matter
Well,
entirely.
Have you looked at all the documents that the university filed with the federal government, telling the federal government what they intended to do with that land?
I have not looked at all the documents.
Well, I think that'd be a good thing to do, because I think...
Quite frankly, I don't think anybody has read all of those documents,
Right.
McCarthy,
Right.
because the documents is probably taller than you are.
Well, I mean, I've got some relevant ones right with me, and I'd be happy to share them with you, and you should read them.
I've read many of them. I have not read all of them, and
Yeah.
anybody that says they read all of them
Right.
probably are
Right.
pulling your leg.
Right. I mean, I you know, but I think that I think we do have to, and you have to pay attention. You are a public policy maker. It's too easy to say, well, this is just a zoning matter. You know, that my house, you know, my responsibilities stop here. You're an elected official. I think it goes with your territory to ask, you know, significant questions. I mean, and to say, well, it's only a zoning matter, and Divot came before us, and I wasn't asked to do anything about the university. I think that's too limited a view.
We were asked to decide whether or not the university had the authority to do what they had done.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the documents that were presented to us,
Mm-hmm.
and as far as the title company report, said yes, the university indeed had the ability and the authority to sell the land,
Mm-hmm.
and the title company insured the title.
Mm-hmm.
So from that standpoint, as whether or not it was the right thing for the university to sell that land, I don't believe that is necessarily our decision to make.
Well, it may not be your decision, but I think it's all of our business.
Well, yeah, I don't have any problem with the petition drive, the whole work.
I mean,
That's fine. But that's
there's always, I mean, what
the
we're getting.
information that was given to the bodies that was making the
Mm-hmm.
decision. We made the decision on the information that was fed to us.
I think what we're hearing from a lot of people, and it's nothing new, is that there's always, there's always this idea that we know better than you do, right? In other words, when citizens come forward, they're often treated very dismissively. You know, so like,
I don't think that I know more than the other people.
Mhm.
However, I think in most cases we have more information than the general public has been given.
well, I've been trying to share a lot of information here tonight. You came in a little bit late, so you missed some of it. But I think that there's a lot of information that we still don't have. Al, I got a caller on line 2.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello, you're on the air.
Well, what's really going on here is the foundation is shooting itself in the foot. Now, there are people involved in the university who want this deal to go through who say that anybody who's complaining about it isn't really contributing to the foundation. Well, that's bullshit. I've had the University of Montana in my will for years. Who knows what I'm going to be worth when I die? But they're going out. This is it. And please, tell the cameraman to bring dog food home. Bye.
Please bring dog food home, cameraman. That was City Councilman Al Sampson, not our last caller, but the male voice that you heard just before that. And Al, I wish you'd take me to Arizona with you. I'd like to see your place down there. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, I've got a question. I guess I don't understand something.
Yep.
I understand the petition drive and whatever, but
Mhm.
the sale itself was predicated upon zoning. Is that correct?
The
Development
it was predicated on approval
of a zoning.
of the zoning, and I noticed when I was rereading my documents tonight, and the completion of an environmental audit.
Impact statement.
Well,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay. Isn't it correct that if Development decides to waive the zoning request on the buy-sell, they can still purchase the property?
That's a tough question. I can't, I wouldn't.
That's true.
And,
Now the question
Mhm.
actually comes forth, and it was never set forth by the petitioners. The petition cannot block the sale.
Mhm.
Do you understand that?
the petition can overturn the zoning.
Only the zoning.
Right.
And
Right.
if the purchaser decides that the zoning contingency that was placed on the buy-sell means nothing to them, they can still purchase the property.
Well,
Isn't that correct?
I don't think it is, and I'll tell you the reason why I don't think it is because when the university put out its request for proposals, they set out certain parameters for what they wanted to see in the proposals.
That's correct,
that-
but they accepted the buy-sell as is. Now it's to the purchaser's power
Mhm.
because those contingencies were placed in the buy-sell by the purchaser. If he would like to amend that, the sale will still go through. In other words, if he decides that Divot Development wants to grow corn out,
Yeah.
they can still purchase that property. Whether it's undervalued or overvalued has no basis. Is that not correct?
You're in an area of the discussion that I'm not familiar with.
Well, I think
Mhm.
this is one of the things, and I think that Al had a real valid point, that we're kind of going off half-cocked here.
Mm-hmm.
That before we get into the whole ramification of save the fort,
Mhm.
I think first things, and we should put it in a logical progression.
Mhm.
A, whether the value of the property is too low or is it too high, these people didn't waltz in the back door of the University Foundation. The property was listed. They went in and cut what they figured was a reasonable deal with
Mhm.
the University Foundation, and the foundation at that time had a responsibility, whether they did it correctly or incorrectly, to accept or reject that offer.
Well, they could. I mean, the
Is that not correct?
what is correct beyond that is that the Regents could have a special meeting tomorrow and say the whole deal is off.
But let me.
Well, I mean,
What's the legality then of Divot Development?
I mean,
Put yourself in Divot Development's think. They have done everything, supposedly whether you agree or whether you don't. It's no different than you buying your house, as you say, and the open space meaning something. If somebody accepts your buy-sell,
I mean, we've got a buyer and we've got a seller.
And
right?
they've agreed,
And they've agreed under certain conditions,
okay?
right? So, I mean, they could go, in any buy-sell deal, the seller could come, or the buyer could come back and say, well, let's go back to the table here and make a few adjustments.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's not, I mean, nothing's a done deal until it's
Well,
done.
But I'm saying that,
Mhm.
that the divot development absolutely holds the key right now. And I think you can understand that, because if they don't, I'll tell you there'll be litigation until all tomorrow's gone.
Hmm. Well,
Because I'll tell you what's going to happen is that if they elect to put a feedlot out there,
mhm,
and that's what the zoning is for right now,
mhm.
guess what? They're going to have a feedlot.
No, if it's, I mean, you may think that. I don't think we'll ever see a feedlot on the land in question.
What's it zoned for now? Can you tell me?
Well, it's zoned for housing.
What kind of housing?
The housing that Divot proposed.
So I guess I'm confused as to what the issue that the petitions did. Granted, if we wanted the open space, and I agree that open space is a real importance to this community and to every community, but if the open space was such an important issue, how come we didn't, as a community, go to the University Foundation and purchase that for the discounted price that Divot Development's going to do?
A lot of people, when they see open space, and it's in an area like the Fort Missoula, they presume, I think logically enough, that this is part of the fort. And they don't expect that one day that they would wake up and read the newspapers and found out that the preeminent public institution in the state of Montana, that is to say the university system run by the regents, has decided to sell it to developers. It's as simple as that. I mean, people don't, stay at home every day, studying documents and researching ownership and whether there's a request for proposal from the university. I mean, it's certainly natural that people are concerned, and it's appropriate.
I agree that they should be concerned. But what you're saying earlier is that apparently Divot Development had more information.
What I said earlier,
Their homework better. Isn't
what
that correct?
What I said earlier, and most specifically, is that the university, insofar as I can determine, and I'm sure that there's a lot more that I need to learn, and I'd like to learn it, but apparently the university did next to nothing on its contractual commitments when it acquired the land from the federal government in the first place.
I think that's a real valid statement. But I think
if they have been such poor stewards of the land and such poor not fulfilling the terms of their contractual and legal obligations, that kind of puts them in kind of a moral dilemma as a steward, and so that kind of gives me a built-in a wariness, about what they're doing now. If they didn't do it well for 25 years, why should I have much faith in what they're doing right now?
I agree. But I think that the people have more or less maligned Divot Development, and I think that Divot Development has done nothing wrong in this situation.
There's never been a word out of my mouth that said that Divot did anything wrong. I think the university ought to retire from the field. That's what I think.
Well, I sure appreciate your program and your time.
Thanks. Oh, just one quick question before
Yes.
you leave. Did you hear my point about the two houses out there?
No, I didn't. So
Okay.
if you could repeat it.
All right. There's part of the deal with Divot, and this gets back to who's doing the best deal for the university, is there's two very handsome non-commissioned officers' housings. They're right there. They're sitting out there on the edge, and it's part of the deal with Divot.
The quartermaster stables.
Right. No, not the stables.
Where are you talking?
These are two houses that are a little bit farther to the west and to the south
Okay.
than the stables.
Okay.
You know those two houses?
Yep.
Okay. I'm somebody who would like to buy a house eventually. I've been out to look at those houses. That's a very nice, handsome part of the deal. So so if I were Divot, sure, I'd love to get those houses. But I don't think, when you look at the appraisal thing again, hey, I think you know Missoula well enough to know that if the university said, we've got two-family houses out here for sale at the fort, and you'd have a long line of people lined up to buy each one of those places for $100,000 as is. right?
Okay, I'm going along with you until I hear your point.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that, in other words, so if you take $200,000 worth of existing housing, then really Divot is getting their other developable, the rest of the land that they want to develop for $250,000, not $450,000. I'm just saying that that's a very real value. Existing housing stock, basically good condition, needs some rehabilitation, and that's a part of the deal that I don't think was paid attention to in the appraisal.
Well, appraisals are based, and I'm sure that you're well aware of how appraisals are based, on comparable sales.
People assume a lot about how smart I am, but anyway, go ahead.
And I'm assuming
No,
that
I don't know a whole lot about
there
the
again, that the university, as you say, has stubbed their toe in this situation.
Yeah, right.
Okay? So apparently there's no comp sales out there. I don't know what the hospital's paying for ground or what the Forest Service, when they constructed their building over on the far side of that road, what that property appraised for, but that should be a fairly good barometer. Wouldn't you agree?
Which you mean in the surrounding area there by the hospital and stuff? Well, I'll go along with you.
Because it was originally the Fort Complex and Larchmont Golf Course, the same thing.
Okay, I mean you're
So
doing.
we've got ground out there right now that basically consists of a place to walk your dog and nap with.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Now, if we're going to take that as agricultural property, of which it is now, with a couple abandoned buildings, and they're all abandoned, what do you base that on? Is it undeveloped property?
Well, let me
How do you define it?
let me go back to those two houses there. And by the way, I'm going to cut you short pretty soon because we've got just a couple minutes and then we got to go off the air. Appreciate your call. But if the university's stated goal, and I'm sorry I've repeated this several times during this hour, but the university's stated goal in making this deal is to secure money for scholarships.
I agree.
Okay. All right, fine. Good goal. If they wanted to double that, because the foundation says they'll get 20 grand out of this deal a year for scholarship money. Why didn't they hold on to the two existing two-family houses and double the value by holding on to those houses, restoring them, and getting in four, student families in there, and then they've got, $50,000 worth of scholarship. There's not imaginative thinking going on up there.
I agree.
So we have to call it a night.
Okay, well, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. And we're almost out of time. I want to thank the crew, Rich Doyle and Terry Jimerson and Lori Hudak for helping out. And let's see, this is Missoula Community Access Television. This is a public conversation. It's your show. We'll be back on the air, I hope, 2 weeks from tonight at 8 o'clock. And don't forget, on this Tuesday night coming up at 11 o'clock, a very special show, a rerun of a show called Oh My God, which premiered here last night, a live show, comedy show, not for the faint of heart, and that'll be on this coming Tuesday night at 11 o'clock. And God save us all. Good night. Music, lights, camera, action.
Join the